What's up, guys? Today I wanted to talk about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So there was a teaser that was released earlier today, and it's gotten the fan base a little split. There are people who are like, hey, I'm really excited, can't wait for it. And there are those who are a little, less, optimistic. And it seems that many people have an issue with the animation. I've seen a bunch of comments who are like, there's something off about the animation. They don't like the animation style. And upon looking at the teaser myself, I want to explain it from an animator's perspective, what may be the issue. When looking at the show, there are certain moments that look choppy or can appear to come off choppy, and that is basically stemming from two principles. I would say four, but we'll get into the other two. The two principles would be timing and spacing. Something that we all learn when it comes to the bouncing ball is timing and spacing. Timing is when something happens, you have something happens in 5 frames. Spacing is how it happens in those 5 frames. Do we ease into something? No. Do we ease out of something? Is it even? That's what we think about when we think of spacing. So when you're doing fast movements, such as what's in this trailer, that's something that you really have to master. Because when we have cartoony animation, what I mean by cartoony animation is just snappy timing, right? So upon doing that, we're gonna have something, known as motion blur. The way we as animators simulate motion blur is via, smears. Or we have the computer motion blur, which is, that's not really the best, because the computer, unless you can tailor how the motion blur looks and whatnot, you get what the computer gives you. And as an animator, you never want to get what the computer gives you. So one way of doing that would be actually doing smears. But the whole essence of smears is that something is moving very fast. That's it. So when you look at this show, one thing that it's lacking is smears. And how it goes about it is trying to hold frames. Now, this leads us to 2 other principles in animation, and that is going to be squash and stretch. Something that we learned during the bouncing ball. This is, it's an exercise that I think many people take for granted, that you truly don't really learn to love until you're later on in your animation career, and you realize how much of no matter what you're animating comes from that squash and stretch, comes from, the bouncing balls, the timing and spacing. When we look at Spider-Man, the show, when we're moving fast, you're gonna have to have some squash and stretch. You're gonna have to have some blur. You're gonna have to have this because it helps and supplements what the audience is viewing. If I go from here and the next frame is here, and that happens, right, it comes off as a pop. So we have to smooth that interpolation of those frames. Now, once again, if you're dealing with limited frames, that's where smears help smooth that interpolation. So I did a shot, because there is one shot where, the guy is moving with the brick. They held that frame for about, I believe, 3 frames. That's a good amount of time to hold a single frame. And what they try to do is they try to simulate the background and move the background. Then there's another shot where I believe they hold it for 4 frames. And I think that's the kick where he kicks the brick and they try to move the background and cheat the background. Now, it's limited animation and it can work. Let me be clear. It absolutely can work. But what needs to happen is they have to supplement it with some smears. They have to supplement it so we don't get this choppy, just snapping a pose to pose, because that's what it feels like in many cases. And then when it comes to the brick actually hitting the person, I get it's limited animation. You get 1 frame in and we immediately go to, the hit reaction. But one thing that as animators we all know is the importance of that contact pose. It's extremely important. I don't care if the person's landing, I don't care if the person's taking off, I don't care if it's a punch, I don't care if it's a hit reaction. You always want to have that contact pose. You may not see it, but you feel it. There's a very big difference between, the original of him being hit and the one that I did. Now, some may like the original, and that's okay. So in this case, we have the original version where they hold the frames for the brick, they hold the frames for the kick, and then you have the brick that comes in and it pops out. And my version, so what I did was I really very much just added a blur to the brick that smooths out that interpolation so we can see where it's coming from and where it's going. And then I did a little garbage smear frame on the kick. I'd love to add a little bit more, especially when you're doing something that's fast like that and you want it to read to the audience. You would want something that shows the impact of the kick, but also the burst of energy from that kick hitting the brick. So that's something I didn't add, but it gives a little sense, it gives a feeling of where this leg is coming from and where it's going and where it came from. And that's the whole point of the smear, is to show, hey, this is where it's going and this is where it's coming from. It's a fast motion. And in the original animation, it doesn't show that. He just pops from, right here and the kick's up there and then the brick goes out. And then lastly, for the brick hitting, always, it's just how I've been trained, always have that contact frame of impact. I would like to alter it a little bit more, but Photoshop is Photoshop, and I'm not really spending that much time for this one frame. But that hit and then the impact of the brick and whatnot, I feel like it adds a little bit more of a oomph, right? You may not see it, but you feel it, and I think that's a lot of these fast action scenes. It's not a lot of what you see, it's about what you feel and how you can cheat that with the principles of animation that we have. That is my best explanation as to maybe some of the shortcomings that people saw with the animation, and really some of the simple fixes that can be done. Real simple fixes. They could keep the animation how it is and just have someone, right, go over, some of the animation, some of the fight scenes, quick movements, add a couple of smears, right? And you do that with 2 colors, a black and the color of whatever, the thing that they're trying to smear. So it's not even that demanding of work if the animator gets the concept of smears and what's going on. It could, you can knock it out really fast. It just depends on if they want to put that level of quality into the animation. The quality for animation is so high that when we see things like this, that people who may not know what's wrong with it, they'll still feel it. They'll feel something's off. They may not be able to articulate what the problem is, but as an animator, we'll be able to okay, I get what the issue is. I understand. I may have, the spacing is off there, or the timing's off there, or there's a pop right there in the animation. And that's our job to make it easier on the consumer, on the audience. So that's my take of of the show. I'm still gonna watch it. I don't have a problem when they do 3D and make it look 2D with shaders and stuff like that. I just think they have to be aware of the limitation. That's my take. I'm gonna watch it. I'm excited. It's a Spider-Man show. We need some more Spider-Man. What we really need is a return of Christopher Daniel Barnes, okay? That's what we really need. If you're gonna give us X-Men, bring us back old school Spidey. But we'll hopefully we'll get it. We'll have to find out and wait and anticipate. Nevertheless, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys learned something. If you did, please feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, guys, keep animating.